Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about the news regarding the Hatzola Jewish Ambulance Service attacks and the arrests of two men. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I'm certain by now everybody is aware that the Jewish Ambulance Service Hatzola, based in Golders Green, were the scene of malicious arson attacks where the ambulances were set on fire.
4 ambulances belonging to the Jewish Community Ambulance Service were set on fire in Golders Green. This happened in the early hours of the morning. No injuries were reported. Counter-terrorism police are leading the investigation into what's being treated as a hate crime. They are currently looking for 3 suspects. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says the government will fund 4 replacement ambulances. Before we heard from him, the Prime Minister condemned the attack and said his thoughts were with the Jewish community.
Well, this is a horrific anti-Semitic attack. And of course, my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with those in the vicinity, the residents who are understandably very concerned, a Jewish community across the country deeply concerned. I've already been in touch with community leaders this morning and will continue to do so during the day. But anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and it's really important that we all stand together at a moment like this.
And we have now had an update from the Met Police and the London Fire Brigade, who have told us some new information. Have a listen.
At around 1:45 hours today, we were called by the London Fire Brigade to reports of a fire on Highfield Road, Golders Green. We attended the scene where 4 ambulances from Hatzola, a volunteer-led ambulance service run by members of the Jewish community, were on fire. The attack occurred in the car park of a local synagogue where Hatzola's vehicles for this area are based. Explosions were heard as oxygen canisters on board the ambulances exploded. Nearby homes were evacuated as a precaution, with 34 residents displaced and road closures put in place. Thankfully, no injuries were reported and all of the fires were safely put out. 4 ambulances have been destroyed, but we understand the service remains fully operational and able to respond to emergencies. We were able to get local residents back into their homes relatively quickly, and I thank them for their patience and understanding. This arson attack is being treated as an anti-Semitic hate crime. This is a devastating incident for our Jewish communities, and we have launched an immediate investigation to identify those responsible. Our officers remain on scene to carry out urgent inquiries and to gather CCTV footage and other evidence. We believe we're looking for 3 suspects at this early stage. CCTV footage appears to show 3 people in hoods pouring accelerant onto the vehicles before igniting them and fleeing. While this has not been declared a terrorist incident at this stage, the investigation is now being led by counter-terrorism policing, with all the specialist expertise they bring and all lines of inquiry remain open. We are aware of an online claim from a group taking responsibility for this attack. Establishing the authenticity and accuracy of this claim will be a priority for the investigation team, but it is not something we can confirm at this point.
And now the authorities have come out saying that they've apprehended 2 people in regard to these attacks and that the investigation is ongoing.
It is an important breakthrough in the investigation, authorities said. Police in the United Kingdom arrested 2 men on Wednesday in connection with an arson attack on 4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish charity. Authorities are investigating the assault as an anti-Semitic hate crime. The Metropolitan Police said the 2 men, aged 45 and 47, were arrested in London on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life. Both men have been taken to a police station in the city for questioning. Officers are searching two properties in North London, a few kilometers from the scene of the attack in Golders Green.
We're okay for this one.
You're not expecting a headline, are you?
So more information will continue to drip out into the public domain. However, I wanted to talk about this ambulance service because while it is a Jewish ambulance service that is set up primarily for the Jewish community, I don't think many people understand that this ambulance service, they unquestioningly service the entire community of the United Kingdom. It's not just a Jewish thing. If you called them up and said that, you required their service, they would not ask you, are you Jewish, or, what race you are. They would just attend. And, I've got friends that work for this service, and I know of instances where I've seen them being deployed, where I've seen them being deployed to assist people in need. Now, again, this brings me back to my point that you can be upset with the state of Israel, you can be upset with what the Israeli government is doing, and you can cloak it under Zionism. That's fine. But when you target this ambulance service that now is not only serving the Jewish community, but is servicing the wider community at large, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, atheists, it doesn't matter. It goes to show the sinister nature of the threat that exists within society and how the narrative is being manipulated and maligned, and how gullible people, intellectuals included, fall for this narrative that it's the Zionist entity and this is anti-Semitism cloaked under anti-Zionism. I'll tell you, many years ago I was I believe that you can be an anti-Zionist, but you will not be an anti-Semite. And, the reciprocal is true. However, the more I've seen what has been happening, every time the state of Israel blinks, the people affected are not Zionists. The people affected are Jews. And that is why I say it's a sinister, maligned threat that cloaks itself under a false pretense. And when you have intellectuals, when you have educated people falling for this, believing this spiel and perpetuating this narrative, and saying it out aloud in public, it's because they want to appease their conscience. I'm telling you, this is what pre-1939 Nazi Germany was like. And this is the direction we are heading in. It is sad. It is absolutely sad when a section of the community that has helped as much as any other section of the community to build this country, and then only to be maligned and alienated. And when the Keir Starmer government comes out in support, and it's all lip service, man. It's all lip service. What have you been doing actively to protect this community from these types of events? You saw the behavior during the 7th of October, the aftermath. What was done? You've seen it weekend in, weekend out, the marches, when the Jewish people are being targeted. You've seen it. What have you done to mitigate that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It is shocking. It is shocking that we belong to a society where people can be targeted because of their faith. And it is really sad that in this modern day and age, you can put people on the moon. You carry a telephone in your pocket. You have computers that are in your pocket. We have the most sophisticated artillery. We have the most sophisticated forms of warfare. AI and all this. Yet, with all that, we still have this hatred for a community that is being carried over for thousands of years. It's really sad. And this attack on this ambulance service is an excellent case in point. You go to Golders Green, it's a predominantly Jewish area. You go and attack an ambulance service that is primarily set up for the Jewish community but supports the entire British populace at large. And I don't understand what kind of sick, demented individual you must be. And when people agree with it, that makes it even worse. And when educated people agree with it, that makes it even worse. So yeah, this is just a follow-up on my video that I did regarding the attacks on the synagogue in the Netherlands. I'll put that video up somewhere over here. Because I think that being anti-Semitic and anti-Semitism is a filthy, disgusting trait that needs to be wiped off. I think that anybody that perpetuates it, any faith that endorses it, any group that endorses it needs to be really, dealt with severely. Because it is an abhorrent practice. It is an abhorrent practice. When you come in and say that the Israeli state is an apartheid regime, but when you see these acts of anti-Semitism across, being perpetuated on the Jewish community, I'll tell you what feels more like an apartheid regime is these attacks on the Jewish community. Because I was part of a community that was marginalized in exactly the same way by a state in a country. The only difference here is that it is not being administered by a state openly. You can argue the case that a lot of it are state-sponsored actors acting, with impunity. So again, when this type of narrative gains credence in society, rather than stand up and hold our head up high and say we're fighting for human rights, we should hang our head in shame. We should hang our head in shame because it is disgusting in nature. It doesn't stop with the Jews. I'm telling you, when you're over and done with the Jews, it will move on to the next race group, the next ethnicity, the next religion. Because that is the nature of the beast that you are dealing with. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share and subscribe. as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow. And again, if you're an anti-Semite, good for you. If you're somebody that believes that these attacks are justified, good for you. I'm not here to tell you that you have no right to speak. We live in a democracy. Everybody has the right to speak. These are my views. You like it, you dislike it, it doesn't matter to me. This is the way I feel about it. And you're more than welcome to comment in the comment section, because the dialogue is what is important. I always say it's important to maintain dialogue, because then there is some semblance of a humanitarian gesture that can creep in. Once the dialogue shuts down, then the path becomes really destructive. So thank you once again for your subscription.